Cool, so go ahead and just start recording.
We're running.
Cool. All right. But where's my phone? So you got audio? You good?
Yeah.
Audio's good? All right. So welcome to Verein Parallele Polis Meetup number 4 on the 19th of November. Wow, man. Just 3 weeks basically since this thing just got started, and we've gotten incredibly far. So I want to talk to you about some of the things that we've got going on, what we've accomplished. And tonight, Operator Burstup playing some new tracks for us. Yeah? Yeah. And so he's going to talk to us also about the ideas for education. But first I'll give a recap, and then I'll invite some of our team members up for you guys all out there in the interwebs to meet and to hear where we're at. Thanks, Chris. You have a seat. Yeah. No, man. I want you to have a seat and give me no audio.
You need me to turn it down?
Yeah, just turn it off. Yeah, because I'm going to talk now. Yeah, just go ahead, drop it.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Cool.
I thought you wanted.
So this is the agenda tonight for people out there. Basically, we decided to fork Parallele Polis in Prague, locally here in Vienna, and we've got a small, sort of like 80 square meter co-working space and classic Sutra Keller with a lounge and an open room that we can do presentations in and move around and do art exhibitions. We got art hanging on the walls tonight. So science, art, and technology, like, is part of the values of Parallele Polis. And we intend to be moving to another location, which is right up the street here in Vienna, which is 200 square meters. And this space will become the office of the Verein. And the new space will be the Bitcoin Coffee or Crypto Cafe, whichever it ends up being, the Institute for Cryptoanarchy, and the Paper Hub working space. And so where we're at so far is that we've decided to, for our interface to the legacy world here in Austria, we need an Austrian solution. We'll be doing a Verein, which is basically an association, something like an NGO or a nonprofit corporation for people out there, because we need to have that for liability for events that happened in the location, and to sign insurance and enter into a rental contract or a sales contract. I mean, there's still ways that we need to interface with the state. And so we'll be doing that over the Verein at some point. We'll do a virtual organization as well, whether it's a DAO, a NOW, a COW, a SOW, or which one of them, we don't know. I guess I read this evening in our keybase chat that the people in Barcelona are looking into working with Aragon Black, which is a really, really awesome team for doing a DAO with bonding curves for their organizational things. So that can be a little bit interesting. So I want to invite Eva up, and she can tell you where we're at with our state of the Verein. Yep. The Verein. Yep. Here you go. You get the microphone.
Little mic, okay.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Oh, there we go. Here you go. Take that clip. You can just hold it in your hand.
Okay. So where are we with the Verein statuten? I've written them up, and they're online. Everyone, I think, is able to read them, take a look at them. It's a formal guideline on how to kind of write the bureaucracy that the Austrian government puts on people so we can meet in a legal space. They're more or less ready. Whoever has something to add is welcome to add. Otherwise, in term of time, I'm ready to apply to have a constitutional Verein by next week. I'll be able to go and apply for it, and it'll take about 6 weeks until we have an answer from the local authority, and then there's a legal base to rent the space and to do all kind of legal work that's necessary to from renting internet to providing a contract to lease the space. So whatever is needed to cooperate with the authority should be done by now. So if anyone has a question, I'm happy to answer. Otherwise, I mean, more or less a woman of few words, if that's existing. Good. Thank you.
Sind das die statutes of the Czech organization, or
No, those are ours.
No, these are ours. Yeah.
These are just the Austrian statuten.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, these are just purely Austrian classic. It's really literally boilerplate. It says how many officers there are, what's your location, what's the purpose of the association. There's literally nothing ideological in it. It's just pure boilerplate bureaucracy stuff so that you have a legal entity. Yeah. So let's see. In terms of the wallets, so Mark was able to install Status and Koinomi without having the device on the network on an Android phone. And we haven't done the keying for that yet, so we were planning tonight while we're all here together for Mark and Ava and I and anybody else who wants to participate in the core in maintaining the key for the first wallet, which we'll be using to do the Verein donations for the beer and whatever, and to start taking donations. We'll derive our other wallets from that. So we plan on doing that while we're all together tonight, writing it down and storing it in safe places. Do you want to talk at all about that, Mark, about what you did? Is it?
No, I don't got any notes. Just note that the status wallet's worthless without being on the net. It's just pristine.
Yeah.
So it's got to be on the net at some point. I was just seeing how far I could go without doing Google IDs.
Right. So we have a phone that has no Google ID on it yet to start 2 wallets with, that we can start taking our beer and chips donations at the thing, and then we'll expand that out. So I guess that Jascha could come up and talk about where we're at with his magic framework for the WordPress theme for our site. Right now we're just using a basic, the 2019 theme, but Jascha's been working on an awesome framework that he can talk about, and then also talk about our larger infrastructure ideas for how it is that we're going to be doing our Bitcoin management and our Ethereum management with our keys and our sales and our shops and everything. So let me just give this to you here. Cool. If you can stand in the light, then you have a good.
Yeah, sure.
People can see it.
I like that. The first thing is what's going to happen soon. That's we have a homepage in WordPress. I'm almost done with the theme. There are just some edge cases, like the events should be displayed nicely. Then we want to get a WooCommerce store added to that. And at this point I'm getting nervous because that means we have user data, and I don't like user data. So I will try to get WooCommerce to register users based only on their public key. And then it's okay to have this one piece of user data. And if they don't want to, they don't have to give us their names or addresses or anything. They just have to get their stuff here in exchange. So you don't have anonymity, because we cannot send you stuff if you're anonymous. And the second thing that's kind of the point before, that's the wallet stuff. Once we have generated that, we will get a BTC Pay server setup, which will allow us to manage transactions on all kinds of Bitcoin and Bitcoin-derived currencies. But there again, I'm pretty nervous because we have a private key of a wallet somewhere, which interacts with code that we do not directly control, which automates some stuff. I don't like that. And BTC Pay does not support Ethereum. So at the same time, I will set up a small script that just checks Ethereum for the wallets we want to watch, puts that wallets into a database, and we have all of the transactions that came into our wallets and can do whatever we want with them. Ideally, I would like to do that in client-side JavaScript, so no server interactions again. This leads into the next part, which will be the whole platform that we basically have to set together or build to manage ownership of the place, to manage membership, to accept payments for any services we might render, to prove that somebody is an owner, and to make sure that we can prove this for however long we have to. And again, without saving anything about the user except their public key. I never want to save anything on the servers except public keys. And you can then have your local data, which might be your user profile or whatever, and you can share it with other public keys, but we know nothing about it. You might share it with the Verein for certain things, but you can at any time revoke the share and then change the data, because we already know what you shared with us. So, and the solution to that is again to just have a Merkle tree where we put all the transactions in kind of our own blockchain, but those are linked to the real blockchains where the transactions came in. And so we make sure that our database has data integrity at the same time. It is linked to real-time values or real-world values. And the second problem with that whole process is that we will be using JavaScript because we want to do everything in the client. And that's cool that's cool when it comes to the DOM. It's not cool when it comes to crypto. So we might use Rust and WebAssembly for that. Yeah, regarding the WordPress magic stuff, that's stuff like I'm hiding the VP admin link, I'm hiding the login page, I'm doing all of that in the client. And once you're logged in, you can access the admin, but everybody who just sends a bot at our page probably won't recognize that it's WordPress. Yeah. And that's...
We're going to be serving that stuff from GitHub, right? So
that's about it. No, the WordPress stuff will be from WordPress for now. And in the longer term, we will transist to some kind of static page generator where we know that the HTML bundles that we upload to some server can be verified by the browser before executing our client-side JavaScript, which leads to a certain level of security, especially if you just download the page and execute it locally. But that's a whole different story. Yeah. And then I could go into a lot of technical stuff, but I think I'll do that next week and have some slides that makes it a bit easier.
okay, awesome.
Thank you.
So yeah, really excited about actually building this. There's a lot of elbow grease and experience over the last years about a lot of the choices that Jascha are making about how it is that we set up the organization. And I mean, starting back from when we did stuff from the Bitcoin Foundation and all that stuff, we have a long curve of experience and know like where it is that we can, use tools that are basically, day-to-day usable, and we'll make the best possible security choices that we can for the usability. I mean, we're still catching up on all that stuff, and we just want to have things that are easy to interface for people that you do it. And so the technology choices that we're making give us a chance for that. Yeah, and then Kai, geleeroyale in our group this week got a Riot Bridge up and running over Matrix. You want to talk about that a little bit? Okay, cool. Kai's also running our camera and brought our streaming setup from back in the days of Giveth. Thanks, Kai, for bringing that.
Sure. It's still being used for Giveth stuff whenever there is Giveth. So there is not so much I want to tell you about. Matrix is here standing as a word. Apart from this movie that you know, there's a chat protocol called Matrix, and it derives its name from actually that heritage. Like it's supposed to be a network that bridges other networks. It's made up in a way that's federated, so if you run your own server and you visit a chat room, the whole history of the chat room or whatever is accessible in the permissions will come to your side, so you always host your own communication. It's supposed to be very resilient in that, and what I like to do is bridge stuff from Matrix to Matrix. I don't like all the clients out there, and it's actually something that's for a security-minded person might be not that interesting. I come from a different angle where I think everything I put, like I type in and I hit enter and it goes somewhere, I wouldn't vouch for it. So however secure your protocol is, however established that connection might be, something might happen. So my general rule is to not put out stuff that I don't want put out there. So actually it's cool, so we can play nice, don't be an ass in chat, stuff like that. It's good for Twitter, like people destroy themselves by going we're going from keybase, which is highly encrypted stuff, to Matrix, where we bridge currently one channel, the general of our keybase. If people want to use Riot, they can request an invitation. For now, that's the security, it's by invitation only. I guess it might be harder to crack than keybase. It's not end-to-end encrypted, so it could be, intercepted in flight. But this is a transparent organization anyway, and we have it now. And so a little thing, if you want to run a chat bridge, I can really recommend this. It's findable on GitHub. It's called Matter Bridge, from actually coming from the Mattermost thing, which is kind of like Slack, but totally open source and free for you to run and host on your own server. So you are in charge of the data for your community, which is nice. And you can bridge 15 protocols between each other: Gitter, Slack, WhatsApp, Telegram, Discord, you name it, Zulip.
Signal?
I think, yeah, Signal too. So, and many more. Thanks. Give it back to Michael.
So it's cool using all the open source tools that we can, and having the openness and transparency. We'll get to that when Mark comes up and talks about the problematic. I mean, essentially, we're building an organization with a web of trust, and one of the things that we're talking about is that while we're inclusive about what people believe and where they come from and their identities or their nationalities or whatever they are, there's still a certain amount of exclusion that happens in webs of trust, and we've chosen to use keybase because of it's sort of like like an entrance card. If you can at least set up and verify an identity on keybase to get in touch with us, to get access to whatever channels it is that we're going to be using in the future, it's just kind of like, well, you probably shouldn't be in the group at all. It's a centralized solution. We're aware of that, but we're going to be just using the tools that work right now with the user interfaces that work for us, and as messaging and chat and clients develop through Web3 and with new technology, we'll be moving there. But we just, again, are using, so just sort of from experience, a best practice with an understanding of the trade-offs that we're making. Burstup is not only an awesome producer and DJ from back in the Schönheitfehler days, FM4. He's also a journalist, and does all kinds of great interviews and segments for Austrian national broadcasting, and is choosing to reduce his hours so he can get back to producing music again, sort of a life change. And Christopher and I have been talking for a number of years about how it is that we can change the education that people have about crypto economics and Bitcoin and blockchain and all that stuff. How we can reach the youth. Christopher has been working on a lot of ideas, and so if you talk about how it is that we plan on doing that aspect of the Institute of Cryptoanarchy, so our public outreach to do education.
Thanks.
Cool.
So yeah, thanks for the introduction. As Michael mentioned, I like to produce music. I've been doing it since the 1990s, and I've been working as a journalist. And somehow, one thing that I always liked about the music genre that I was producing back then, or still am producing, the whole hip-hop thing, is that there was always this concept of edutainment, which is a big fun word, but to me it was always a very important aspect of hip-hop music, because there was so much political message to transport via it. And as a journalist, one thing that I learned is that I had to be on point with things, and I had a lot of fun creating radio segments for a while that were 3 minutes short, but somehow told a story. And when I was working on music, I was always spending 2 or 3 weeks on a tune, and when I was working on radio segments, I would finish it within a few hours, and I said, oh wow, it's a 3-minute piece, and I can bring it on air, and I hope people will gain something from it. And I'm always learning and reading and watching speeches and trying to get as much information as possible. And there are so many things that I don't know. But one thing that I think can be explained pretty fast are important basics of Bitcoin, like the whole thing about keys and security and wallets, hardware wallets, why it's important to have censorship-resistant money. So when Michael and I were talking today, you asked me how many people I was talking to about Bitcoin at the radio station where I work, and initially I said 3, I think. And then, as I kept thinking about it, I found out for myself that it must be at least 3 times as many. And the son of the bookkeeper of my tax advisor called me a few weeks ago and said, hey, can we meet for a coffee? I need to know more about this Bitcoin thing. So I was sitting down for an hour with him, and I've been doing that constantly. So how can we use, I don't know, how can we bring information that's necessary to people, and I think there are a few ways to do that. One thing that I think we could do in the initial phase of a Parallele Polis in Vienna would be to produce small little segments of online content, like 3 or 4 minute stories or segments, like a radio segment, like a little series of small podcast elements that explain some basics. I would also like to bring together some experts who are better at explaining code, who are better at explaining economics, and bring that together with the basic stuff. I think we should have small little workshops where we invite people for group sessions to work on certain aspects of crypto, like wallets, like using exchanges. I think that will be very important next year, because we've been talking earlier, forgot your name, sorry, but we've been talking about how the meetups were so much bigger in 2017, and you had Bitcoin meetups with 100 people then, and now it's like very, very small. And of course, when the market turns around again, there will be larger groups of people looking for knowledge, and I think it's always very interesting to see that, but a lot of people will fall for scams and ICOs and shady schemes again. So how do we inoculate people against that? It's only possible through information and education, I think. But education is such a serious word, I don't really like it.
Would you say that? Knowledge transfer?
Yeah, I don't know. I mentioned the word edutainment earlier, but that's too much. It reminds me too much of the whole hip-hop thing. I think education is okay for now. We should get the information out there, and one way to do that is with online content. The other way is with workshops, and then maybe we can do a series of events with speeches and things like that too. But I'm not sure if that's the right approach, because if it's like a frontal, I don't know, Frontalvorträge, that's not something I would like to start with.
Cool.
I think when we use when we use a space like this, then there should always be enough space for people to think, not to get a lot of information and then not being able to think about it, because we know from neuroscience that the brain needs a lot of time to actively process new information. So that's why I prefer small pieces of information and then a lot of time to process and debate and relax and sleep over ideas. So that's something I'll keep in mind too. Yeah.
Awesome. So yeah, that sort of like segues in you know, I guess we could call it, you know, like a founding legend. So the birth of Parallele Polis just basically came out of my own loneliness and desire for a community after working online so many years remote with different teams, and you know, having amazing friendships and only seeing those people, you know, not often enough for me in foreign cities. And there's just really hasn't been a place in Vienna that draws or the people that I'm interested in. And so what we're all about is the human aspect of what it is that we're doing. And so often it seems that the human element is left out of all the conversations and code and everything. You know, it's also tech-based, and it's also tribal, and you know, orange coin go up, tribalism, and you know, the various flavors of Ethereum, and then you know, and challengers like Parity and Polkadot. I mean, it's all just like one incredibly interesting, you know, area of tech, and you know, all of those different communities talk about building human relationships, but it seems that what I'm trying to say is that the conferences that I've attended with my peers and listened to the, you know, being on the hall track and having all these great conversations that you have, what misses for me is actually in my hometown, my home city, and so, you know, that's why we want to reach out to the youth and build personal relationships that we maintain over a longer period of time. And if we only reach 7, 8, or 10 people, you know, over the course of a 6-month period. But those are people who have, you know, had the time to become well informed about this huge body of knowledge that it is that we've accumulated just in the 10 years since we have this practical implementation of Bitcoin, and all the literature that came before it. You know, things just move so fast that it's not fast enough for, it's too fast for people. I notice it's too fast for my family. I'm sure you guys have had the same experience. You know, they absorb a little bit of it, and that's a really, really good point that Christopher makes here, is that, you know, people need more time to digest this, you know, the thinking patterns and the idea of self-responsibility and sovereignty and everything. But I just don't want to forget about the people. So in my discussions with Mark, who's been a writing and thinking colleague of mine now for almost 3 years, he's a kind of like our smuggler in residence, our philosopher in residence. I know he doesn't like me saying that, but Mark's writing and thoughts are great. He's got a new blog post up on our page talking about the problematic of cryptoanarchy, and so he's going to give us a little bit of an outline about the piece and the thought that he's been having, and where it is that we're trying to define ourselves in this crypto liberation community. We have the models and we have the values of the different Parallele Polis and the other hacker spaces, you know, incredibly rich history. And we're trying to find our way in this as to, like, you know, what is the defining aspect of our crypto liberation community. And so these are Mark's initial thoughts on that. So.
Oh, fine.
There you go.
All right. Hi, everybody. Yeah. So problematic implies that we have a problem with cryptoanarchy, and if we wish to do all the wonderful things that we have up here, which we're preparing, we are interfacing with the government, as a Verein. We're looking at the technology, trying to figure out where it fits into our ideas of freedom that we want to express, and how we're going to educate people eventually. The question there is, why call it cryptoanarchy? I mean, this is going to rock some boats. It's a loaded term. Who wants to be an anarchist? So I think we're going to have to get comfortable with that word a little bit more, or throw it over the board. So my understanding of cryptoanarchy, and that's what this blog post is a start of it, because I think there's some real problems with it. But let me just try and quickly go through a basic definition, and then basically invite everybody to pick it up online and further discussion. So cryptoanarchy is obviously 2 words. It's crypto and it's anarchy. Crypto is often thought to be cryptography, but there's an older meaning. There were cryptoanarchists 100 years ago, before they were using, I mean, maybe they were using cryptography for the writing systems, but they weren't using PGP and the internet and Tor and all those kind of things. They were cryptoanarchists because they were hidden, right? And they had to be hidden because in order to be agents of anarchy, in order to survive, they had to not have attribution towards their acts until they were able to make, I don't know, whatever you think the goal of the anarchist liberation would be. So that's one notion of crypto, which actually kind of informs how the crypto-anarchist behaves. Because the other notion of crypto that we all take now is cryptography. And it's this sort of multiverse of mathematical possibilities engendered by the rupture of the mathematics that were invented by public key cryptid systems. Really, I believe that mathematics is not invented, it's discovered, because it's kind of pre-existing, and it's a weird kind of terrain because we seem to be only limited by what we can imagine that hangs together. And that's a mathematical system, and there's countless times over the last 100 years where obscure branches of mathematics became the basis of description of physical systems that are only discovered 200 years after the invention of mathematics. So if we have this limitless multiverse of mathematics, we can imagine many different societal constructs in which we can embed ourselves. So that's sort of what crypto means. That's the more interesting meaning for crypto for me there. But crypto, as it hidden, is that any act of a crypto-anarchist can potentially be severed for attribution, right? Because at any moment you can choose to repudiate your hitherto voluntary association. And that for me is a big problem with crypto-anarchy, is because a lot of the ways we make societies, reputation, these are we're going to have to come up with new systems. So then the crypto part of anarchism is pretty easy to understand and maybe not be so impalatable to people, but the anarchism is tough. I'm not going to try to give a history of anarchism. I think Smuggler's Talk at HCPP 2018 is a great introduction. I just say that what's interested me about anarchism, what interests me in crypto-anarchism, is that anarchism is about freedom from coercion, right? and examining how we give up freedoms and coercions in our everyday lives. And that's the kind of the important thing, because that necessitates us as sort of, all anarchists are by definition social creatures. There's no anarchist on an island. It wouldn't make sense. So the terrain of anarchy is our social relations. And it's not in any way destructive as much as it's constructive. And both are part of how we make an effect in the world. Anyway, so the blog post goes a little bit more. It offers the beginning of a kind of a program, and the simplest, it's not any 5-year program, it's just a program that we have the possibility to experiment with parallel societies through cryptoanarchism. And that's exciting and also scary. And that's what I hope that this blog post awakens. Thank you.
Awesome. So yeah, we're just getting out media. We're in stealth mode. Parallele Polis, the main account, has started getting in touch with us in our online presence. So we're just building these things out step by step, and as the network widens, it should just like grow organically. But it's important to document and have this content every week. So we've also, this is our first YouTube channel broadcast. I have to say that I'm pretty fucking blown away by all of this empowerment tech that we actually have, these devices that we use that are simultaneously our tracking devices and leashes around us. But to be able to be, I've gone through all the stages of producing media in so many different formats, and it's just so amazing that you can just actually be your own television station. We can talk about these things, and you have podcasts, and you can do these things. And if your message is interesting, that people will be, will find you online. Of course, reputation plays a role with that, like we're talking about. But those are all the problems that we're all conscious of sorting through. Is how do you actually navigate the monetization of identity and reputation in light of being a crypto anarchist without saying I'm just gonna hide myself in the corner and not deal with this stuff. Yeah. So the conversations that we've been having so far have been pretty interesting and contentious inside of the space, and so I'm really looking forward to all of you continuing with me on this journey to build this local community center for doing this. Thanks for coming tonight, and thanks for watching online. Cool. Thank you, audience.